Hi, my name is Becky Jennings, and this is the Responsible Parenting Podcast. I give you the transformational tools to stop reacting to your children in the moment and start responding with intention.
Before we dive into the episode, I want to share my free guide to managing our kids' meltdowns. We know that meltdowns are normal, but they still suck and can be ridiculously triggering. This 4-step free guide will help you break the cycle of reactivity and help you get through the meltdown without snapping yourself. Don't join your kid in the tantrum. Grab my free guide and learn how to manage meltdowns like a pro. Head to responsibleparenting.ck.page/meltdown, or just go and click the link in my show notes and get your guide today. Okay, let's get to the episode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Responsible Parenting. My name is Becky Jennings. I am your host. And today, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, my background is different because I had to move my entire setup to the kitchen table because my neighbor's dog will not stop barking. I've texted the neighbor. I have asked, is there anything we can do? I have received no answer, and the dog has continued. It's not just like a little yip. It is like a junkyard, vicious sounding, about to attack dog. So that's just not an awesome scenario to be talking about parenting stuff. And hopefully we are getting close to that lunch hour where the workers on the opposite side of my house who are doing a woodworking project for my neighbor, and it appears a buzzsaw is involved. So let's just say this is a testing moment for me to ground myself and really practice what I preach. So I am hopeful that you will hear my words and not all the background noises. So fingers crossed, because I'd really love to dive into this topic without a ton of distractions. I also am super excited to share with you that we have one of the coolest offerings I have going right now. It's a virtual meetup. It's going to happen the last Tuesday of every single month. I might move it around for a holiday here and there, but last Tuesday of every month, you can count on that moment where you're like, this is plaguing me. This is a chronic problem that never goes away. I'm constantly struggling with the morning rush and getting the kids out the door. And I hate that I have to yell and then I send them off to school after I've yelled at them. Or the bedtime battles where your kids are coming out of bed 10, 15, 20 times a night. And the bedtime routine went from a half an hour to 2 hours. Or we're dealing with potty issues or picky eating issues or defiance and backtalk. And the cycle isn't improving. In fact, it's just getting worse, and both parties, you and your children, are just digging in further, and it seems to be really challenging and not going anywhere. So the last Tuesday of every month, you get an opportunity to join me in this virtual meetup where you can ask me those now what questions. Like, you've tried everything. You've tried the scripts. You've done what you feel like you need to do, and it still isn't working, and you're like, now what? So we get to really spend some time together on Tuesdays, and you get to ask me those now what questions, and I give you personalized, actionable, effective strategies where you can finally get some relief, remove these really challenging issues out of your family dynamic so you can really start to enjoy parenting again, so you can have that close bond that you want with your children, and there's not all this other stuff keeping you from that. So I'm very excited. The link is in the show notes. It's called the Virtual Meetup. Please go ahead and click on that. Sign yourself up. It's $4.99 a month, the lowest possible offer I could ever give for one-on-one coaching support. So I hope you take me up on that offer. So today we are going to dive into another aspect of control. And I want to talk about it in the context of the ultimate end goal that we have as parents, which is to have like a fulfilling, loving, beautiful relationship with our kids, where we can trust our kids, where we feel we believe that they are doing their best, where they have the freedom to explore, they have the freedom to figure out who they are, and we trust them along that process. Now, if you have young children, elementary school children, a strong-willed child, which is what I have, it can feel like we need to crack down, come down harder, control these children more, because the behavior that we see is rude, defiant, not following our rules, pushing up against boundaries, and it's overwhelming to our system. So I want to read the definition of control as well. So if someone tries to control a situation or another person in an unhealthy extent, they may be described as a controlling person, right? They may try to control a situation by taking charge and doing everything themselves, or controlling others through manipulation, coercion, threats, and intimidation. You might be sitting there going, ugh, that feels very accurate. That feels like what happens on a regular basis when I'm trying to get my kids out the door, when I'm trying to have them go to bed. That the threats, they just come flying out of our mouth as like our one fail-safe to regain control of the situation so that we can feel better. In the previous episode where I talked about how we say, you change so that I can feel better. That's a huge part of control. It's like you need to change your outward behavior so that my internal unrest can settle down. And that's really hard, especially if we've been, fairly controlling through the toddler years where we were doing it a large part out of safety, but then we just got into this rhythm, into this habit of controlling everything, micromanaging everything, helicoptering over them to make sure they were safe. And that was probably the original intent. But then it just kind of snowballed into every other scenario. And so now you're like controlling the homework situation. Now you're controlling the morning rush. Now you're controlling potty time. Now you're controlling. And you're noticing a lot of pushback, a lot of resistance and power struggles. And a lot of that comes from the fact that as humans, we want to exert some control over ourselves. We want to exert control over our bodies. We want to feel powerful as well. And so our kids will grab for that control in the most frustrating times. Because our children really, they don't get to control anything throughout their day. They're pretty much told what to do. Their days are micromanaged. But what they can control is when and how much they eat, right? They can control where and when they go to the bathroom, and they can control like when they go to sleep, right? So 3 of the most challenging things: when and how they use the restroom, when and how they eat, when and how they go to bed. And these can drive us insane. So we end up putting on coercion tactics. We manipulate with bribes, with rewards, with threats, with intimidation. If you don't go to bed right now, XYZ is going to be taken away, or this is what's going to happen. And it feels awful for us. But we have been trained and conditioned to believe that our role as the parent is a dominant, controlling role. And it's very hard to figure out how to work with your child so that you guys can actually have a seamless flow, so that control can be volleyed back and forth in a really safe way so that we can build trust. Now, trust, on the other hand, when I looked up the definition of trust, it's on the most basic level. When we trust someone, we believe wholeheartedly in both their desire and their capacity to back their intentions with actions, to do what they say they will do, and to take care of the relationship. Trust, I love this definition. Trust is embodied care in relationship to others. Whoo! Trust is embodied care in relationship to others. So what does this mean? This means like giving age-appropriate tasks to build confidence, to build trust, and not micromanaging the outcome. It's believing and allowing our children the space to fail and mess up and not come down on them and say, see, I told you so. I knew you couldn't do that. This isn't going to work for me. Da, 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 da. The whole litany of things we say to our children. Trust is saying, I see that didn't work out. I'm wondering what your intentions were. I'm wondering if we can problem solve this together. When we look at our children as entities that we can work with, as opposed to control, everything changes. To believe that they actually have good ideas, that they have well-intentioned desires to stay connected, to stay in a loving relationship, to not mess things up. They're not intentionally trying to mess things up, even though it feels like it at times, because we've corrected the behavior so many times and it still hasn't changed. So we can start to believe and add stories, all of these negative stories, and build that confirmation bias, that negative evidence that says, my child is deliberately trying to upset me. I must crack down harder and control this so that I don't feel this discomfort anymore. Instead, how about we flip it? How about we flip this whole thing and say that in order for me to feel this rage, this disappointment, this frustration in my body as regularly as I do, I must give my child some control so that they can start to build trust. They can start to show me what they're capable of. Because if you're controlling everything, they will never be able to show you what they're capable of, ever. So we will continue to control as they age. They are going to continue to push against the boundaries. So we need to build in fun, playful, exciting pockets of time where they can be independent, where we do that parent power switch, where they actually take control and they take on the role of parent for like 15 minutes a day. It's that one-on-one special time, child-led time where they're fully in control, where they get to show you their actions, their ideas, their abilities. It's funny when we do these power switches, right? When our children take on the role of parent and for 15 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever you can offer them, they get to be in full and complete control and they get to really play with those power dynamics. We actually don't have to be as controlling in all of the other situations throughout the day because our children have felt what it feels like to be in control. They've gotten that bucket all filled up. They've gotten to exert their power. They've gotten to, pretend to be mommy and daddy. They've gotten to play and feel and enjoy that human primal need to feel powerful and in control of yourself. And they've been able to do that in a safe, contained, playful, fun, connected way with us during that one-on-one special time. So we don't necessarily feel those grabs for control in all of these other areas because when connection is high, cooperation is high. When connection is high, conflict is low. When connection is high, there's not these humongous grabs for control at any possible time that they can, which gives us a greater opportunity to trust. And we get to see over and over and over again that our children do have these well-intentioned thoughts, these really strong beliefs in themselves that they can do this. I remember when I was a kid, and my mom will say this till she's blue in the face, that there was like a 3-year phase where everything was my do, my do, my do, my do. And that was really hard for my mom to relinquish control and to let me do things all on my own. But it was vitally important for me to feel like I was in control of myself, like I was in control of my body. And the more my mom allowed me those my do moments, the more she could trust. And the more I was trusted as a teenager, the more I was trusted as a young adult to make bigger, more important decisions where my actions had to match what I was saying I would do. So just remember in these pockets of time when you feel like the kind of the weight of the parenting falls on you, like if you don't come in and control the situation, if you're not in control of the outcome, if it's not all on you, then everything's going to fall apart and you're going to have to come in and fix it all anyways. When we can kind of relieve ourselves of this mindset and say, I'm actually going to delegate control to my children in an age-appropriate way. And if you have questions about what's age-appropriate, feel free to direct message me or hop on this podcast and we can talk it through as well. But when we delegate age-appropriate tasks to our children, not only are we building skills for them, not only are we building self-esteem and confidence, but we are also we're proving to ourselves, we're giving us the opportunity to see in real life, to change the storylines in our heads that actually our kids are capable, that we can trust them, And the more we can trust them, the better connected our relationship is. And the more we allow for those opportunities to show trust, the more they are going to trust us as well. Because the one thing that I want the most out of this whole process is that when my children, when they are teenagers and they find themselves in a sticky, tricky situation where they would probably avoid talking to me about, that they go, I know the one person I can trust, and it's my mom. I know the one person I can call right now and not feel fear of the repercussions is my mom. So let's take a little bit of an inventory. How much are you controlling? And where can you give age-appropriate moments for your children to prove, to practice, to test things out without having to come in, fix, clean up, tell them they're wrong, add the whole thing to it. Just allow them to experience this and play with this because their intentions are there. They want to be connected. They want to show us that they're capable. So control is the opposite of trust. And that is a huge component. That trust thing is what will keep us connected all the way through toddlerhood, beyond. So thank you for joining me for another episode. I can't wait to hear your thoughts. And if you have any follow-up questions, just go ahead and direct message me on Instagram at Responsible Parenting. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Responsible Parenting Podcast. If you like what you heard, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. If you know someone who would benefit from this podcast, I'd be honored if you'd share this episode with them. Until next time, know that you are enough, you are capable, you've made it through all of your hardest days, and we will keep growing on this parenting journey together. This podcast was produced by Kim Kelty and myself, Becky Jennings, and edited by the Kelty Method, Branding and Podcasting.